Sometimes it seems like science has been around forever. The birth of science is generally traced back to the scientific revolution, which started in Europe in the 16th century. Up until this point. In fact, Copernicus's heliocentric theory was so controversial that he didn't even publish his ideas until he was more or less near death. Galileo Galilei, who was born in Pisa, Italy in 1564, had similar problems. He was an Italian astronomer and physicist who made several important discoveries about the solar system. For example, he discovered the 4 largest moons of Jupiter, which he named the Medicean moons after the Medici family, who ruled Florence at the time. After all, they weren't really that different from Copernicus's theory. However, things changed when Galileo published a book supporting Copernicus's theory, and Galileo was ordered to stop advocating for the heliocentric model. But Galileo continued to support heliocentrism, and was eventually charged with heresy. He was then placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. And here's a fun fact. Galileo's arrest and trial were kept secret for almost 200 years, and that was a problem because the Catholic Church still believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. He also made improvements to the telescope, and was the first person to use it to observe things in space. There were many other scientists making important discoveries in other areas of science. They were willing to question everything, and that led to some incredible discoveries. It's a process that starts with observation and ends with discovery. It's a process that requires skepticism, debate, and open-mindedness. And it's a process that has led to some amazing discoveries. And Edmund Custis, who made important contributions to optics and astronomy. If you want to learn more about science and math, you can do that right here. And if you want to keep watching, click right here. I'll see you next time. All of this began with a few simple tools and a willingness to question everything. Alright, thank you for watching. It's something that we can all do, and it's something that we should all do. And Robert Hooke, who studied fossils and made the first compound microscope, and identified the cells in cork that are named for him. Not to mention scientists in other parts of the world who are making important discoveries of their own. For example, there was William Harvey, who described how blood is pumped throughout the body by the heart, and Andreas Vesalius, who made detailed studies of human anatomy by dissecting human body. You see, putting the sun at the center of the solar system contradicted the Bible, which said that the Earth was created on the 4th day, along with the sun, moon, and stars. Robert Boyle, who was an Irish natural philosopher, chemist, and physicist, considered to be the father of modern chemistry. Isaac Newton, who developed the laws of motion and universal gravitation. And they were able to do that because their work was published in books and journals that used a new type of language, one that was precise and unambiguous. This new language is now known as scientific language, and it's the foundation of modern science. And Antonia van Leeuwenhoek, who invented the microscope and was the first person to see bacteria and other microorganisms. He also observed Saturn's rings and some of its moons, and he made the first ever recorded observation of a comet. You see, Galileo made observations about the solar system, then tried to explain them using the prevailing geocentric model. He found that he could not explain what he observed using the geocentric model, so he concluded that the heliocentric model was correct. But perhaps his greatest discovery was that the sun, not the Earth, was the center of the solar system. And to challenge the Bible was to challenge God himself. The scientific method was not invented during the scientific revolution, but that's where it really started to be used. First, scientists make observations about the world around them. Then they form a hypothesis, which is a possible explanation for what they observed. Next, they test that hypothesis with an experiment, and then analyze the results. And finally, they draw conclusions based on the results of the experiment. And then they repeat the whole process over and over again. Most people in Europe got their knowledge from religious texts or ancient philosophers like Aristotle. And if you're not familiar with Aristotle, he thought the Earth was flat and that heavier objects fall faster than lighter ones. So yeah, not exactly Mr. Reliable. This chemistry, don't get me wrong. This was not the first time someone had proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system. But unlike his predecessors, Copernicus actually supported his claim with math. And that's really what set the tone for the scientific revolution. Because from that point on, scientists relied on observation and reason, not faith or ancient teachings, to understand the world around them. Physics, biology, geology, astronomy. It all seems like it's just always been there, but that's not the case at all. Science as we know it today is really only about 400 years old. So let's go back in time and find out how it was born. It's me, and this is my channel. But during the Renaissance, people started questioning everything, including what Aristotle had taught them. This questioning attitude was encouraged by new inventions like the printing press, which allowed for the spread of new ideas. And one of these new ideas was that the Earth might be round. That's because a Polish monk/astronomer named Nicolaus Copernicus had published a book proposing that the Sun, not the Earth, was at the center of the universe. And once this idea took hold, well, the floodgates opened. Now, and that's why it's often said that Copernicus is the father of modern science. Of course, not everyone was happy about this new way of thinking. Copernicus wasn't the only one who faced persecution for his scientific ideas. With the telescope, Galileo saw that the moon had mountains and valleys, craters, and other features that made it look more like a real place rather than just a shiny disk in the sky. Now, Galileo reached this conclusion independently from Copernicus, but he used a slightly different method to arrive at it. Now, when Galileo first presented his findings, the church largely ignored them. In fact, the church was so opposed to heliocentrism that in 1660, they placed Copernicus's book on the list of forbidden books. In 1633, Galileo was tried by the Inquisition and forced to recant his support for heliocentrism. In any case, the scientific revolution was not just about astronomy. Then, there was Johannes Kepler, who discovered the laws of planetary motion. There were also scientists like Christian Huygens, who studied light and color and invented the pendulum clock. All of these scientists built on the work of those who came before them. And finally, all these scientists worked in an environment that encouraged skepticism, debate, and open-mindedness. So, in short, science was born out of a desire to understand the world around us. In fact, it's led to every single thing we know about the universe today. Because, as Galileo once said, the Earth can take no rest from her labor, which she performs willingly and gladly for the love of truth. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch another one right here.